Good morning. Okay, so I've done this once, so now I'm a master, right? Yes. Okay, so today I selected a passage that comes from the book, The Science of Mind, the definitive edition, A Philosophy of Faith and a Way of Life by Ernest Holmes. And I bought that here in our Desert Light bookstore, just so you know. And it's out of the section, Activity of the One Mind, and it reminds us that spirit is always expressing, and as we bring a willing heart, we open to its growth, its wisdom, and its life. Activity of the One Mind. We are living in an intelligent universe, which responds to our mental state. To the extent that we learn to control these mental states, we shall automatically control our environment. This is why we are studying the power of thought as we approach the subject of spiritual mind healing. This is what is meant by the practical application of this science to the problems of everyday living. The result of this mental work is what is meant by demonstration. In the great universal mind, man is a center of intelligence, and every time he thinks he sets mind in action, because of the oneness of mind, it cannot know anything outside itself, and therefore cannot contradict any thought given. It must reflect whatever is cast into it. We are immersed in an infinite creative medium, which, because of its nature, must create after the pattern our thought gives it. Jesus understood this, and in a few simple words laid down the law of life. It is done unto you as you believe. No more simple, and yet no more profound statement could be made. And as we hold these words in our heart, we remember that the very activity of the one mind is alive within us now. And with a willing spirit, we grow, we learn, and we thrive as expressions of spirit itself. So that leads me to our monthly affirmation. And I invite you to hear this month's affirmation. I'll say it first, and then we'll affirm it together as a community twice. And the affirmation of the month is, I embody a willing spirit to grow, learn, and thrive. And now, I invite you to join me in speaking these words together. I embody a willing spirit to grow, learn, and thrive. And I invite you to affirm it once more with me, with even greater joy. I embody a willing spirit to grow, learn, and thrive. Okay. Now I invite you to take a deep breath with me together and gently close our eyes. Beloved Spirit, we give thanks for the life that is ever expressing through us. We open to the truth that learning is expansive and ever evolving. It's guiding us into greater awareness all the time. Learning and love are our soul's purpose in this realm. We are here to experience love, to give love, to share love, and to receive love. Through growth and through learning, love is made visible in us. Thriving is our ultimate divine inheritance. The infinite creative power of the universe moves in us, through us, and as us. With our willing hearts, we embody this truth, and we step forward in joy, in peace, and in freedom. And so it is. Amen.
The first time I heard that song was, well, a couple decades ago now. As I think about it, I'm like, how long ago was it really? It had to have been about 16 or 17 years ago, I think. What year is this, 2025? It's 17 or 18 years ago. And it was played for us, a recording of it, of course, Daniel singing. The recording of it was played for me and my cohorts in my first practitioner class as we were sitting down to take our final examination, our licensing examination. And it was really a great reminder to not think we have to have all the answers. That what we are put here with this time on earth is to be on the exploration and to never assume that what we think might be the final answer is the final answer, because we're in a constant state of spiritual evolution. That is how I have come to define my entire ministry, is that I am here to encourage spiritual evolution with the understanding that that spiritual evolution means that there is no end point. To let go of the race. And if we acknowledge that we can let go of the race, well, what then? How do we live our life? How do we understand our place in this world? How do we move forward? Well, I think that's what spiritual community is all about. I think that's why we seek out, those of us who are impelled into seeking out spiritual community. I think that's what it's all about, to know that we are in this thing called life together, that we are on this journey together, and that not a single one of us is a silo. That we can celebrate together, that we can celebrate the nature of life, the nature of love, the nature of divinity, understand it from the point of view that we are all part of it. And when we get that, well, what then? What then? What's the purpose of life here on earth? Well, Thomas Troward, one of the luminaries of the New Thought movement and the development of New Thought, said that there is one purpose for our being present. There is one purpose for being here. And he said, above all else, our purpose for being is joy. Think about that. If you let go of all other conceptions of purpose and acknowledged and allowed yourself to just live a life of joy, what would that look like? How might your life be enhanced in the experience of it? Now, one of the things that I always say is that joy is not meant to be derived from outer circumstances, that our natural state of being is joy. And if we are not in a state of joy, it is not for us to try to get that joy from outside, but to question, what is it within myself that is holding that joy back from me? I love to experience life through the eyes of wonder. To look at everything that exists from the point of view of awe. A couple of my favorite, well, there's a duo. I know I've referenced this before, but there's a duo, Lisa Ferraro and Erika Luckett. Erika Luckett has made her transition now, so they don't produce music together anymore. But they released a song called Awe. And the core chorus of that song was this: if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. If you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. Well, the thing that we see through the eyes of awe is a reflection of something inherent within us. So that's the thing I want to acknowledge right now. We're not deriving awe from out there. We are seeing our inner awesomeness reflected in that which is out there. What if we lived life from that point of view? There's a rabbi, a Polish rabbi, who offered this. He said, our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casual. To be spiritual is to be amazed. That was Rabbi Abraham Heschel, who was one of the leading Jewish theologians and philosophers of the 20th century. As a young man, he escaped Poland 6 weeks before the Nazi invasion. He has quite a storied history in terms of what he did and who he was in this world. Among that, he marched alongside Martin Luther King and John Lewis in the Third Selma to Montgomery March. So I really want to, when you put that in the context, the things that he was experiencing in life, major world war, the civil rights movement, there's a lot that, we can look at it in historical perspective and say, whoa, that was pretty heavy. But he still hold on to this idea. I'm going to read this again. Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement, to get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. I truly think about that in the context of the, I don't think that it's going to be a surprise to anyone that we're living through an interesting time now of political upheaval. And I'm not going to get political except to say that there are spiritual solutions to the upheaval we are experiencing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Spiritual solutions exist for the upheaval we are experiencing. It doesn't matter if you perceive yourself on one side of the aisle or the other side of the aisle. There are spiritual solutions for what we are experiencing in this life. And I think that the spiritual solution begins with live life from the point of view of amazement. Let your own amazement, let your own awesomeness, let your own center of peace be the way that you choose to be in this world, and we become the conduits for the quelling of all discord. I believe so full within my heart that discord is only born out of a sense of our separateness. Discord is born from a sense of separateness from God, a separateness from each other. And that how we resolve that discord is to acknowledge that we are one. We are one united wholeness. Every aspect of my physical being and energetic being is divine in its nature. That is true for every single person I encounter. And that point of view for me has brought great comfort in the expression and experience of my life, because what I tend to see is the reflection of that point of view in everything I experience. And so if you're feeling, last week when I was speaking about spiritual cooperative, there's one thing that I realized I started talking about, and this, I don't know if you ever noticed, this happens a lot. I start talking about something, and then some other idea will hit me, and I never return back to that original idea. But last week I mentioned this idea of discord. And last week I mentioned this idea that, the challenge of life is equal. We can be equal to the challenge by knowing the truth of our being. And so today is really the expansion of that idea. To let go. Just take a breath and let go of the notion that it has to be challenging, the notion that it has to be hard. We begin our spiritual practice of prayer with an invitation to relax. We begin that spiritual practice by remembering that we can breathe in this moment. We can release any unnecessary physical tension, which allows us to begin to release any unnecessary mental or conscious tension. I think one of the benefits and values of being in spiritual community is that you get to walk through these doors, and I trust that you all get to just relax for the 13 hours that I speak. And whatever we place our attention on, fundamental to the New Thought philosophy, whatever we place our attention on grows in our experience. So the question is, what are we placing our attention on? I remember, I have in the past acknowledged that I am a little bit of a news junkie, right? And then I say, but maybe we should let go of, investing in the news, because what are we filling our minds with? What are we putting our attention on? Well, if I'm putting my attention on the discord that is often reported in the news, then I am contributing to the growth of that discord in my experience. I'm not going to worry about anything outside the self, but I'm contributing to the growth of discord in my own experience, because energy follows our attention. So what are we placing our attention on? So you know what's really great? I have let go. I do not watch the news. I don't listen to the news. I've let it all go. I have Sirius satellite radio in my car, and I used to have at least 3 of my preset buttons on different news channels. They've all been erased and replaced with music. Yes. Because I want to practice what I preach. What am I putting my energy on? What am I putting my attention on? Because I will grow that in my experience. Otto Scharmer had this to say: energy follows attention, right? Energy follows attention. Wherever you place your attention, that is where the energy of the system will go. Energy follows attention means that we need to shift our attention from what we are trying to avoid to what we are trying to bring into reality. How much attention do you place? And just a question for reflection: how much energy do you place on the construct of joy in any given moment throughout your day? It's real easy to get distracted from putting the attention on joy. It's real easy to get us distracted from putting the attention on light. It is really easy to get distracted from putting the attention on amazement. It is really easy to get distracted from putting the attention on love. But the more that I commit to doing that, and the more active I am in doing that, the more I have experienced ease, which for me is the opposite of this discord. Jesus said the one commandment. There was one commandment. He said, all that other stuff, let it go. There is one commandment that I leave you with, and that commandment is love. How much attention are we placing on love? Not love from a romantic point of view, although that's part of it. Romantic love is really important, but love for self, love for humanity, love for the animals, love for this thing called life. If we begin to love life, life begins to act accordingly. Energy follows attention. Where are we placing our attention? He coined this as well, Otto Scharmer. He coined this as well, and I love this because his whole point of view is to take us from living life from ego systems and embracing ecosystems. The question I have is this: from that point of view, what is possible? What becomes possible in our lives? What becomes possible in the expression and experience of our interaction with one another? What is possible? Because I spent a lifetime figuring out what I can't do. Am I willing to step into what is it I can do? It's real easy. How many, and again, this is rhetorical. Sometimes I want you to raise your hand and answer the question, but I'm going to let this one also be rhetorical. If you're experiencing something in your life that feels insurmountable, and I know that there have been times in my life that I feel like some experience is insurmountable, what is it that comes naturally to you in relationship to that experience? And what I mean by that is your natural response to look at it and say, I cannot overcome this. Because I think that's what we're taught to do. We are taught to just acknowledge, oh, it's insurmountable, can't do anything about it. Nope, not going to work, not going to happen. My question to you is, we are the point of creation for everything in our lives. Because God is constantly creating. We are the outflow and expression of the divine. We are the outflow and expression of God. And so God is constantly creating. And with God, within God, all things are possible. And so it invites us to ask the question, in light of what we perceive as insurmountable, what is possible? Not what, I can't do it. Say, what can I do? What is possible within this? What can I do? How can I step forward? How can I perhaps consider this from a different point of view? I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. How can I consider this from a different point of view in a way that enhances the quality of my experience? And be open to being surprised by what you intuit as an answer. Because sometimes the reason we think we can't is because we've rooted ourselves in past ideas, and we apply those past ideas to our present moment experience, forgetting that past ideas are just that, and the infinite does not rely on the past for what it chooses to create in its outflow. So what is possible? That's really the question that I may leave here with today. What is possible? Today's talk title, if you get our weekly email, was I Am Unity. I am unity. Unity is not it is an organization, so let's just be clear. Unity is an organization, but the organization has no effectiveness in the world unless we identify as the constituents of that organization and bring what is ours to bring to this thing called life, which I believe should be rooted in love, joy, forgiveness, kindness, remembering who we are. And so if I say I am unity, what I am saying for myself, and you get to decide for yourself what this means to you, but when I say I am unity, I am stepping forth and affirming that I am the point of view where love is expressed, that I am the nature of forgiveness in its embodiment in every interaction I have, and that I have made a commitment to remember who I am, no matter the circumstance. Because when I remember who I am, no matter the circumstance, nothing is insurmountable. So where am I placing my attention? Where am I placing my attention? Some ideas that go along as well with the idea of I am unity, because this month is rooted in the construct and an idea thematically of willingness. And I think back to these quotes that I brought today and the nature of the way I've expressed today, and I am unity also means having a willingness. That willingness that begins with opening our eyes each day in wonder and recognizing the sacredness of life and each other. That's how I demonstrate being unity. That's how I demonstrate being divine. That's one way. Another way is to place our attention on unity. We can place our attention on our connection rather than our separation. Where we place our attention, energy flows. Together we can choose to focus on harmony. Together we can choose to focus on cooperation. Together we can choose to focus on shared purpose. And how might our lives in their expression be transformed when we do that? We are here as co-creators. We co-create with the power of divinity, but we can also co-create with one another because we are all the divine in expression. To co-create in community is an invitation as well, though, to bring in a willingness to listen, to open up, to listen, to share, to open up to sharing, to open up to supporting one another. We can commit ourselves to a cooperative vision of life, and I fully believe in cooperation over competition. We can create a cooperative vision of life that is greater than any one of us alone, although we do have the power at the individual level to do this as well. But isn't it just easier when we're in community to do it? It just is. So today, the call for me is to invite us all to choose amazement. Choose amazement. Choose to see the world with fresh eyes, fresh eyes that invite us into that co-creation of community, that willingness to live from the point of view of awe and to place our attention on how we may work together in harmony, cooperation, and shared purpose. Today, we choose amazement, to place our attention on what is possible, not what divides us, to live in willingness to listen, the willingness to serve, and the willingness to love, because it is in that willingness that we discover the truth. For me, this is the truth. You get to decide what the truth is for you, but I'm going to affirm this truth for myself. I am unity. You are unity. We are unity. And in unity, all things are possible. Peace and blessings. You are magnificent. If you are new to our community, I offer a home practice every week that is an invitation to put into practice the ideas that have been presented here today. So this is the home practice this week, a little bit simpler, at least 3 times a day. Well, maybe not that simple for some of us, but this is the encouragement, at least 3 times a day. Pause and reflect on one thing that amazes you about life, no matter how small. No matter how small. This picture, you ready? I took this picture on the Camino. It was one of my longest walking days. I walked just over 20 miles that day, and it was through relatively empty areas. I talked about it when I got back. It was the day that I walked the Roman way, and I didn't see another pilgrim basically the entire day, which was very unusual. But there was this wild lavender growing everywhere, and the bees that were enjoying the lavender, and I just decided to take the moment to get up close, and I got this picture of this beautiful bee on the lavender. Talk about reflecting on one thing that amazes about life. We could consider that a small thing, but in my heart in that moment, it was a big thing. So I invite us all into that practice this week.
Need a moment of peace or inspiration? Call the Unity of Tucson prayer line for a comforting, uplifting prayer, available 24/7. Each month, we offer a new affirmative prayer to support you on your prayer journey. Call today and let the power of prayer uplift your spirit.